Greetings fellow Flat Caps and welcome to the Spectrum. A few weeks ago I did an Ask Me Anything video, and one of the questions, though it wasn't actually a question, it was more of a request, came from Gina asking me to do an impromptu character for DnD. I said at the time it would take too long to do, and I would dedicate his own video to it, and here it is. So, I've got my dice, I've got my character sheet, I've got my pencil, I've got a rubber. All I need now is to go and get the books I'll need, so they're in the other room. Bear with me. Okay, truth be told, I did this for a bit. I don't need all of these books to make a character, though I do want to try and use as many as possible. Problem is, not all of them contain character options. So, in actuality, I'm going to be using this many books. So, of course, the first thing we're going to need is the Player's Handbook. So in this one, this is the starting point for anybody who's interested in making a new character for the first time, because it will give you a step-by-step on how to do it. But then after that, you can do them in any order you want. So, creating a class. What class should we go for? There's so many to choose and I can't decide. Should probably be one I haven't played before, at least one I haven't played in a long time. Or I could just go for one of my favourite classes, and that can be between a fighter or a rogue. And, well, I'm already on the fighter page, so we're going to be starting with a fighter. So our base starting class is a fighter. So we're going to be playing as a fighter, but we also have to choose a subclass later on. At least for some classes you have to do later on. Fighter is one of those classes. But right now, our next step is to choose a race. Now, when it comes to the Player's Handbook, all I'm going to be doing is using that for the class, because that gives me all the details on the classes and the step-by-step. So our race is going to come from this one. Volo's Guide to Monsters. There are like a ton of races to play as. I think there's over 100 you can play as right now. But then choosing which one you want is, well, sometimes easy, sometimes hard. All depends on the player. Okay, character races. So what have we got? We have an Azamar, we have a Furbolg, we have Kenku, Goliaths. I'm tempted by Kenku. Lizard Folk. That was my very first ever proper fighter, that race. A Tabaxi, a Triton. See, I was tempted to go Tabaxi and just make Nami, which is Gina's cat, but I don't think I'm going to do that. So, I think... How about a race that I haven't been before? I haven't been a Furbolg before. Okay, let's be a Furbolg. So, my race is a Furbolg. So, what do Furbolgs get? Okay, so their Wisdom score will increase by 2 and their Strength increases by 1. So I'm just going to make a note of that for when we come to determining their stats. Their age. Reach adulthood around 30, but the oldest of them can live for about 500 years. Also, for those of you interested, I'm only going into this much detail because I want to. You don't have to when doing yours. You could just leave your age as an enigma if you wanted to. How old is he going to be? There, let's be immature. 420. Okay, alignment. As people who follow the rhythm of nature and see themselves as its caretakers, Furbolgs are typically neutral good. Evil Furbolg are rare and usually the sworn enemies of the rest of their kind. Okay, well, I like the idea of that. Let's make him a neutral good character, shall we? Size. They're between 7 to 8 feet tall and weigh between 240 and 300 pounds. Alright, let's go straight down the middle. He's going to be 7'5". Rats along his back, calls your name and it all fades to black. And he's going to weigh 270 pounds. Okay, so he gets a racial trait called Furbolg Magic. You can cast and detect magic and disguise self with this trait, using Wisdom as your spellcasting modifier. Once you cast either spell, you can't cast it again until you finish a short or long rest. When you use this version of disguise self, you can seem up to 3 feet shorter than normal, allowing you to easily blend with humans and elves. So, identity theft is good among the Furbolgs. Okay, so they also get something called Hidden Step, which means that as a bonus action, they can turn invisible until the start of their next turn or until they attack. Make a damage roll or force someone to make a saving throw. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a long or short rest. Okay, so identity theft is even easier to do because you can just go invisible and run away when you get caught. Powerful build. You count as one size larger when determining your carrying weight and capacity. Oh yeah, so he's a big strong boy. He also has speech of the beast and leaf. You have the ability to communicate in a limited manner with beasts and plants. They can understand the meaning of your words, though you have no special ability to understand them in return. You have advantage on all charisma checks you make to influence them. I mean, we can all communicate in a limited manner to animals. Behold, Milo. Whether or not he understood that, I don't know. And he can speak Elvish, Giant, and Common. What a very linguistic little man. Well, I say little. We're about to be making here. Okay, so that's everything we need from the Furbolg from this book, so we're going to add this to the done with pile. Next up, we need to choose a class. Now, I figure that what I'm going to do with this character is just make him my favourite class, or at least one of my favourite classes, and that's a fighter. The thing is, anyone who has played D&D before knows that some classes, at a certain level, will have to choose a subclass. So what kind of fighter they are, or what kind of cleric, or what kind of wizard, things like that. So, I've already chose the fighter, and I'm going to get the base stats down, but then we're going to use Xanathar's Guide to Everything to choose a subclass, if of course there are subclasses in here. So there is the Arcane Archer, a Cavalier. I like the idea of Cavalier, because Furbolgs are meant to be like lovers of nature, so if he's going around riding a giant bear, or an owl bear, or something like that, that sounds pretty fun. And there's also Samurai as well. I do have a Samurai fighter in another game, so I don't think I'm going to go do that one, although seeing a 7'5" person in Samurai armor would have been interesting. But I like the idea of Cavalier, so he's going to be a Fighter Cavalier. Okay, I know I said I was going to go step by step in the book, but in all honesty, deciding what your stats are first is a good idea. Now, everyone's got different ways of doing it. My preferred method is rolling 4d6, taking away the lowest amount, adding the rest up, and that's the stat you have. But the most important thing, make sure you use cat dice. Because cat. Alright, so I'm going to do that now. Let's see what we've got. So we have a 10, which I'm going to put in intelligence. A 14, which I'm going to put in dexterity. Another 14, which I'm going to put in wisdom, which also goes up by 2 because of him being a Furbolg, so that is 16. Another 10, which I'm going to put into charisma. A 13, which I'm going to put into strength, but because he gets a +1, that becomes a 14 because of Furbolg heritage. And finally, for my constitution, another 14. Almost balanced all around, really. Okay, now with that out of the way, we can more accurately get the fighter's details down. So, assuming that I'm starting at level 1. So at level 1, his health would be 10 plus his constitution modifier, which in this case is 2 because his score is a 14. So starting health is 12. Then he would level up, and I could either choose to take the base amount, which is 6, plus my constitution modifier to make it 8, or I could roll a d10. To play it safe, I'm just going to take the base and add another 8 to the health, which then puts it to 20, and then let's live a little. For level 3, let's roll a d10 and see what happens. 8! Ooh, that actually paid off, so he's going to be at 30 health at level 3. Blah blah blah, and then let's see his proficiency, so the stuff he's really good at using. So he's good at using every kind of armor and shield, although there's only one kind of shield really. He knows how to use every weapon, immediately sounding like a Mary Sue, this character. But he's not proficient in any sort of tool. So while he gets to break his sword, he don't know how to fix it afterwards. His proficiency saving throws will be Strength and Constitution. And I get to choose 2 skills from a list that's written in this book that he could also be proficient in. I'm going to say, because it only makes sense, he's going to be proficient in Animal Handling and Survival. Okay, then his starting equipment. So let's see. I'm going to give him some chainmail for his armor. He's also going to have a shield with 1 martial weapon. What the martial weapon should be, I don't know. I don't want to go sword because that's always too obvious. Let's have something unusual, shall we? Something out of the ordinary. Not like a club or an axe or anything like that. How about let's change that. So he's not going to have a shield, instead he's going to have 2 martial weapons. One of which is going to be a lance, because what sort of animal rider doesn't have a lance? And the other one is going to be a halberd, because he liked to hit things real hard. So with the lance, what makes that so special is that it has reach, so it can attack things that are 10 feet away, but also, when he is on foot, it's 2-handed to use, but when he's on horseback, it's 1-handed to use. Or at least animal back of some kind anyway. He's going to get a light crossbow with 20 bolts. And finally, he will take a Dungeoneer's pack. What's in the pack, I never remember. So he also has an ability as a fighter called Second Wind, which means that when he wants to use a bonus action to try and recover, he can use a D10 plus his fighter level to roll it, add it all up, and that will be how much health he heals. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It all depends on these little fuckers. Now, also as a fighter, he has to choose a fighting style. Now, there's different fighting styles in different books, but a fighting style is not the same as what's called a martial archetype, which is essentially his subclass. The fighting style just determines which kind of weapons he is better at using. Although he can use all of them, there is some that he'll be able to use really well because of his style. Now, for a cavalier, out of the ones that are in the player's handbook, I feel like that the best thing to do would be to use great weapon fighting, because then, when he's using a weapon that requires 2 hands, like the lance, if he rolls low on the damage dice, he can roll it again and try and get a higher amount. So then supposedly he would level up, and then he gains a new ability called Action Surge, and that basically means that in combat he can take a second turn straight away, but he can only do it once per short or long rest. And then when he gets to level 17, he'll be able to do it twice before he needs a rest, but only still limit it to once a turn. Now, level 3 is where the archetype comes into play, and that's where we turn to this book, for the Cavalier. So, what does he get at level 3? Well, first off, he gets a bonus proficiency. So I can gain proficiency in one of the following skills: Animal Handling, History, Insight, Performance, or Persuasion. Now, I already have one in Animal Handling, and Survival's not on there, so I could choose a new skill, or alternatively, as it says here, I can learn one additional language. I think that I am going to take a skill instead, and I'm going to go on to well, no, not Persuasion, because his Charisma is low. How about Played to his strengths, he's got high wisdom, so let's make Insight one of his new proficient skills. Okay, so he also gets the ability Born to Saddle. Your mastery as a rider becomes apparent. You have advantage on saving throws made to avoid falling off your mount. If you fall off your mount and descend no more than 10 feet, you can land on your feet if you're not incapacitated, which means knocked out. Finally, mounting or dismounting a creature costs you only 5 feet of movement rather than half your speed. So he can mount things faster, giggity, as well as do better not to fall off the thing. And then the final thing he gets here is Unwavering Mark. You can menace your foes, foiling their attacks and punishing them for harming others. When you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can mark this creature until the end of your next turn. This effect ends early if you are incapacitated or you die, or if someone else marks the creature. While it is within 5 feet of you, a creature marked by you has disadvantage on any attack roll that doesn't target me. In addition, if a creature marked by you deals damage to anyone other than you, you can make a special melee weapon attack against the marked creature as a bonus action on your next turn. You have advantage on the attack roll, and if it hits, the attack's weapon deals extra damage to the target equal to half your fighter level. Regardless of the number of creatures you mark, you can make this special attack a number of times equal to your strength modifier, which in this case is 2, and you regain all uses after a long rest. Ooh. So, pretty powerful, but comes at a cost. So that's our subclass sorted, so that goes onto the use pile now. Now, next up... So, we've done a race, we've done a class. What comes next? Well, step 3, of course. And step 3 is... determine the ability scores. But we've already done that in order to put the information down of the fighter more accurately. Which means that we go straight on to step 4, which now includes... choosing the alignment. Well, we've already done that, he's neutral good. And then we have to decide what their ideals, bonds and flaws are. Now these come from a background. So now we're going to choose a background for our character, which means that our next book is going to be Sword Coast Adventures. So we've got a clan crafter, a member of the City Watch, a cloistered scholar, a courtier, a faction agent, a far traveller, an inheritor, a knight of the order, an urban bounty hunter, a tribe member of the Uvgart, I think, and a mercenary veteran. Or a noble. So, let's see. I like the idea of bounty hunter. I don't like the idea of bounty hunter. Being a knight, maybe, I don't know. Unless I could, like, fluff it a bit so that he's a knight of nature, some part of organisation or something like that. Although it says here, Knight Orders of Faerun, which is one of the locations in D&D. There's one here that says, Knights of the Unicorn. Knights of the Unicorn began as a fad of romantically minded sons and daughters of Parsha families in Baldur's Gate. I mean, the idea of being a unicorn knight sounds pretty funny, and I could probably come up with a interesting looking design for that. So yes, you know what? I think we're going to go with that. He's going to be a unicorn knight, which means that as his background, he now gets some new proficiencies, which means that he is now proficient at persuasion, which isn't that great because he's only got 10 charisma, which means he gets no bonus to it. There's a sleepy dog. As well as Arcana, and then I can choose from Arcana, History, Nature, Religion. Oh, you know what? He's not actually proficient in Nature. I feel like he should be. And of course, that's not going to get a bonus, but that makes more sense for the character. And then he gets proficiency in one kind of tool now, which is either a gaming set or a musical instrument. I like the idea of an instrument. What kind of an instrument does a unicorn play? Well, if you ask Gravity Falls, they play rave music.
All our dumb horns can do is glow, point towards the nearest rainbow, and play rave music.
Well, I guess a drum, because then he can at least drop some sort of bass. Then he learns one additional language. There is a part of me that wants to make it a deliberately useless language, as in one that not a lot of people speak. Things that I can't remember all the languages off the top of my head. I only know a few. Aquan, Celestial, Infernal, Gnomish, Elvish, Giant, Dwarvish, Goblin, Orcish. See, I don't think I can choose Druidic as a language either. I don't think that and Thieves' Cant can be learned other than choosing that class. I don't think you can just choose to learn those. So, let's see. Because I can't think of any of the actual languages, I think I'll just make it Gnomish. He knows how to speak to the tiny people. Yeah, and then his equipment, which I get to add on now. In addition to his fighter's equipment, he also gets a set of traveller's clothes. Probably a shirt that says, I'm part of the Unicorn Fan Club. Did I accidentally make a brony? A signet. A banner or a seal representing my place or rank in the order. I'll take a banner. Don't know what it's going to look like yet. And a pouch containing 10 golden pieces. Yay. And then, as he is a knight, he also gains what's called a feature, which is an ability he can use, and this feature is called Knightly Regard. You receive shelter from members of your knightly order and those who are sympathetic to your aims. In order, if your order is a religious one, you can gain aid from temples. Knights of civic orders can get help from the community, whether a lone settlement or a great nation they serve. Philosophical orders can find help from those they have aided in the pursuit of their ideals and those who share those ideals. This help comes in the form of shelter, meals, and healing when appropriate, as well as occasionally risky assistance such as a band of local citizens rallying to, carried on the next page, aid a sorely pressed knight in a fight, or those who support the order helping to smuggle a knight out of town when he or she is being hunted unjustly. Basically, you have the ability to ask your fan club for assistance. Now, normally at this point when choosing a background, you'd be able to then choose their flaws, ideals, and bonds. However, there aren't any in this book. Instead, it says go to the soldier's background in the player's handbook and choose from there. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so here we are with the soldier. So first off, we need to choose his speciality. Now, feel free, if you are following along at home, to choose one yourself or make one up. You don't have to stick to the book. But I'm going to roll just to see what happens. So I need a D8, and the speciality of this unicorn knight, who is yet to be named, we will name him after we do the background, is 8, which means his speciality is in support staff, being a cook, blacksmith, or something similar. How about morale officer? Singing all of these songs. See, ever since I said I've accidentally made a brony, now that's all I can think of him as. Okay, so next up, we've got the personality trait. So that's another D8. And that's a 5, which says, I can stare down a hellhound without flinching. Next up is the ideal. Now this is a D6. We're going to use another cat dice for this one. 6. And that one says, my city, my nation, or people are all that matter. And then next up is the bond. That's another D6. That is 4. 4 is, I'll never forget the crushing defeat my company suffered or the enemies who dealt it. And then finally, D6 for the floor. That's a 4. It says, my hatred of my enemies is blind and unreasoning. Oh, I'm going to kill you with love. I'm going to squeeze the life out of you in a giant bear hug. So that's the personality bit sorted. Now let's move on to a name. Now, if I remember correctly, furbolgs, their nature of names comes from things in their environment, so they tend to name themselves after the nature surrounding them. As he is a cavalier, and he likes animals, I feel like Hoof-Hearted is the best name for him. So we have a cavalier fighter, who is a unicorn knight, named Hoof-Hearted. Then step 5 would be choose the equipment, we've done that, and then step 6 is come together, right now, over me, as quoted by the Beatles. Now, at that point, you've got enough of a character to play with. We're going to take it a little bit further now, and we're going to see if we can fill in some sort of backstory for this character. And we're also going to, right now, I know I said we're going to take him up to 3, but instead, we're going to take him up to 4, which will also increase his health, so let's take another roll of the dice and see whether or not it would be a good thing. Nope, not as well that time. Unfortunately, I didn't get 10, with a maximum of 12 increase. Instead, we are increasing by a maximum of 7, which means his net HP at level 4 is now 37. But at level 4, you then have 2 options. You can either increase 2 of your stats by 1, 1 of your stats by 2, or you can choose a feat. Now, a feat is just another skill. So let's have a look in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and see what kind of feat we can pull out from here, shall we? Okay, so we've got Artificer Initiate, so I can learn some of the Artificer class's skills. Chef, Crusher, Eldritch Adept, Fey Touched, Fighting Initiate. Your martial training has helped you develop a particular style of fighting. As a result, you can learn one fighting style of your choice from the fighter class. If you already have a style, the one you choose must be different. Ooh, we could learn a separate style. Interesting, but I'm not entirely sure if I want to do that yet. Meta Magic Adept, a Gunner, Shadow Touch, Piercer, Skill Expert, Poisoner, Slasher, Telekinetic, Telepathic, and that's it. Quite a few good options, but which one do we want to go for? Ooh, I like the idea of Piercer, because if he's going to be using a lance most of the time, then this will increase his strength or his dex by 1, but then when he hits a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, he can reroll one of the attack damage's dice and must use the new roll, which means he has an opportunity now, twice, to get more than a 1 or a 2 on a damage dice, so I think we're going to go for that. But whenever he scores a critical hit with a piercing weapon, he can then roll an extra damage dice on top of it. So I think we're going to go Piercer. So this, God, the more I phrase it like this, the more it sounds like I hate it. I don't have anything against people who like My Little Pony, but I just need to point out the fact that we have made a unicorn knight who uses something that is about 10 foot long to pierce people. So that's the feat from Tasha's. Now, let's see if we can... I dropped my sheet. So now let's see if we can get any inspiration for things like friends, enemies, allies, or background for this character. So, moving on to the next one. This is the Spelljammer Adventures in Space collection. Now, in this one, it comes with a screen and 3 different books. I forget which one has the character options in it. I think it's Astral Adventures Guide. And also, these are very pretty. It's a hippo. Although that's not the best one because, look, it's Boo! Boo the hamster! Okay, I like the idea that occasionally he goes to space for whatever reason. So, maybe we should give him a spaceship. Now, I have to stress that this is just me dicking around at this point. This isn't actually part of the standard character creation. And let's see what kind of ship we can have. Just because it looks very cute, we're going to go with a turtle ship. Look at him. He's beautiful. So this Unicorn Knight now owns a turtle spaceship. Okay, so our next book, Acquisitions Incorporated. This is based off the people who run their own campaign, who are also the creators of the Penny Arcade series. Now, having a look in here, let's see what we could potentially apply to our new captain of a turtle ship, Brony. Okay, so with Acquisitions Incorporated, the biggest thing about it is that you can start and run your own franchise. So part of me is thinking about him owning a franchise. But what sort of franchise? And then there's company positions in it, like the cartographer, the decisionist, the documancer, the horde person, the lawmonger, the obviator, oculant, secretarian. Let's see. What kind of franchise would this guy have? How about he sells like unicorn powder or unicorn wigs or something like that? Whenever they have to cut the unicorn's manes because they're getting too long, he turns them into wigs. Need to think of a slogan for this as well as a company name at some point, but I'll probably get inspired as I'm looking at other books. But let's see what other books can give us. Actually, you know what? Let's see if we can look in Mordecai's Tome of Foes for some sort of inspiration as to what this business could be called. Okay, so on page 186, there is a drow marten mother who her dress is made out of spider webs, but at first I thought it was all her hair. So I have the idea of the slogan for the company being fabulous hair for anywhere. Maybe he'd name the company after himself. So because he's called Hoof Hearted, he'd probably be called Hoofs and Hearts. Hoofs and Hearts. Hoofs and Hearts, and then expands the slogan a bit for fabulous hair for anywhere. Even down there. And with that, I would say this character is complete. So, to give a recap, we have made Hoof Hearted, the 7'5", 420-year-old furbolg fighter who's part of a Unicorn Knight order who owns a company that makes wigs out of discarded unicorn mane hair and owns a giant turtle called the Cowabunga. Owns a giant turtle ship, rather, called the Cowabunga. He uses a lance, a halberd, and a light crossbow, and goes out adventuring with people to look out for new animals because he's a lover of nature while making products humanely out of their fur. What a strange creature we've made today. But either way, there you go, Gina. There's your impromptu character. And for those of you watching at home, I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And I hope that you consider subscribing and liking, because if you like this, I'm not going to say much, but all I'm going to say is something similar is on the way. So thanks everyone for watching. Much love and appreciation to you all. And remember, you're always welcome at the Spectrum.